The first disappearance was barely noticed. Small towns are quiet places, and people move or disappear without much talk. But after the fourth person vanished, everyone started paying attention. The rumors spread quickly. Each missing person had been seen last with someone who looked exactly like them, as if staring into a twisted mirror. I didn't believe it, who would? But then my best friend Sarah went missing. Sarah had been at the coffee shop, chatting with someone, laughing in that loud, bright way she always did. A few people saw her talking, but nobody saw who she was with. That night, she was gone, her apartment left in eerie silence, her things untouched, her phone lying on the counter as if she'd simply vanished. No one believed she'd just leave without a word. Determined to find out what happened, I retraced her last steps, stopping by the coffee shop and asking around. That's when I started noticing strange things, people who looked like they didn't belong. Blank stares, slightly off facial expressions, shadows that seemed too long or twisted. Felt like being watched, but every time I turned around, there was no one there. Late one night, I found myself on an empty street, the moon casting faint light over the town's deserted shops. I felt it again, that prickling feeling like eyes boring into the back of my head. I spun around and froze. Standing across the street was me. My own face stared back, a blank expression devoid of life or recognition. The figure's eyes were hollow, almost dead, but the resemblance was unmistakable. My mouth went dry as it started moving toward me, each step perfectly matching mine. The dim light caught the edges of its face, and for the first time I noticed that its skin didn't fit quite right, as if it had been stretched over something unnatural. I couldn't breathe as it advanced, the hollow version of myself drawing closer with each step. Panic surged through me, and I bolted, sprinting down the dark alleyway, my footsteps pounding as loud as my heartbeat. But every time I glanced over my shoulder, there it was, my own face, twisted and warped, grinning in a way no human could. I ducked into an old, abandoned building, the air thick with dust and rot. I hid in the shadows, listening to the sound of footsteps approaching, slow and steady. As they got closer, I could hear soft, wet sounds like something slithering beneath skin. When I peeked through a crack in the wall, I saw it, the creature peeling away my face, stretching and rearranging the skin as if trying on a mask. My stomach lurched. The skin underneath was raw and red, oozing as it contorted to take on different features. Sarah's eyes, a stranger's mouth, my own twisted grin. Creature could perfectly mimic anyone it encountered, using the faces it stole as disguises. I stifled a scream, covering my mouth to avoid giving myself away, but it was too late. Creature's head snapped in my direction, its face half-formed, a grotesque mix of me, Sarah, and other missing faces. "You are mine," it rasped, its voice a chilling echo of my own, mixed with hints of other voices. I backed away, trying to find an exit, but it lunged at me, reaching out with hands that were both my own and somehow horribly wrong, fingers too long, nails cracked and sharp. I swung at it with a piece of broken wood, but it barely flinched, the impact leaving a sickening squelch as it sank into its skin. Blood, or something like it, oozed from the wound, a dark, thick liquid that smelled like decay. I turned and ran, the creature's distorted voice following me down the hall, each word slurring into a terrifying echo. "You cannot escape!" I raced through the abandoned building, the creature's footsteps echoing close behind. My vision blurred as terror clawed at me, my mind unable to accept what I had seen. As I reached the basement, I found a rusted metal door and threw myself through it, locking it behind me. The basement was dark and damp, the smell of rot and mildew filling the air, but I didn't care. I just needed to hide. The silence was brief. Creature's voice came again, faint but unmistakable, calling my name in a tone that mixed my voice with Sarah's. "Come out," it whispered, its words slurring, dripping with malevolence. I stayed still, praying it wouldn't find me. But then, its face appeared in the crack between the door and the wall, a grotesque smile spreading across its distorted features. "I already have your face," it murmured. "All I need now is the rest." With a surge of desperation, I grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor and swung it at the door, smashing it into the creature's face. The impact sent a spray of blood, or something close to it, across the room. It recoiled, letting out a guttural scream that echoed through the basement. I took the chance and ran, scrambling up the stairs and out of the building, not stopping until I reached my house. My heart was still pounding when I burst through the front door. But when I called out to my family, they stared at me with blank expressions. My mother's eyes filled with confusion. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. I stumbled back, the truth hitting me like a punch to the gut. Creature had stolen my face, my identity, and somehow left me erased from my own life. I glanced in the mirror by the door and saw nothing but a stranger staring back at me. Now I wander the town as a faceless shadow, a ghost in my own life, and every night I hear that same chilling whisper, "All I need is the rest."